Now, back to my guest, back to Tracy Highton. Tell me now about how the treatment actually works, and what do you do? What's the process when someone first comes to see you?
Well, when somebody first comes into my practice, the first thing I do is ask them if they know anything about body stress release, and if not, I give them a brief introduction to the technique. I then take a case history, which will include some of their sort of health background, details of any sort of traumas, accidents, that sort of thing they may have experienced, what it is that's actually brought them to body stress release, so what is it they're looking to try and address. And then I will sort of do almost a body scan and ask them whether they've experienced any particular symptoms in their body.
And how do you do the body scan, Tracy?
It's not a physical body scan. I will talk through their body and say, have you ever experienced headaches? Does your neck cause you a problem? Do you get heartburn? Do you get pins and needles? And ask them lots of different questions like that, literally from top to toe. So in your case, for example, asking about the cramps.
Yeah.
So that would have been part of a sort of normal questioning.
Yeah.
So once I've done that, we then get to the bit where we are going to attend to the person. We do it with the client fully clothed.
Yes.
And we have, certainly in my practice, I have a special high-low bed. Which,
yes, this is very strange. It's actually on the JPEG that I put up on Twitter.
Yeah, it looks very strange, and some people think they have to get in it. But actually, it's really designed for people who may not have very much mobility or people who are in a lot of pain.
Right.
So rather than them having to climb onto the bed, they can just stand on it.
Because it comes right upright, doesn't it?
Yes, and we lower them down.
Yes.
So it makes life much easier for those people. Much easier
if you've got someone who's suffering a leg injury or something.
Yeah, if you've got somebody really elderly
Yeah.
or something who's not very mobile, then it works very well. So once the person is lying down, we do a series of tests on the body using a form of reflex testing, which is quite unique and not used by anywhere else in any other technique. And this allows us...
It's very gentle though, isn't it?
It is. We don't do any manipulation or... it's not massage, it's not using acupressure points. We're testing a lot around the spine because that's where the nerve supply comes from.
Yes.
And it's the nerve supply. If there's muscle tension around the nerves, then that has an impact on how the body functions. So what we're trying to do is establish areas in the body where tension has got stored and stimulate those areas to reconnect them with the brain through the nervous system so that the body's natural self-healing abilities kick in and the body resolves the tension, which is why I said I didn't fix your cramps, your body did. So
right, so in the case of me getting the leg cramps, how go through that again, because I'm sort of getting it now. I'm finally understanding.
Well, basically, if we start to store tension in our body, it will disrupt the body's communication system, the nervous system.
Yeah.
And therefore things will not function as effectively as they should do.
Yeah.
So, for example, with cramps, say, in your calf muscles, very often that is because there is a lot of tension has built up in the lower back.
Yes.
And therefore the communication through the nerve supply into the legs is affected and can result in cramp. So by relieving the pressure in the lower back, the cramps cease. So what we do is we do our gentle tests on the body to establish where tension has got stored, what direction that sort of line of tension is. And
how do you feel that, Tracy? How do you know?
I don't feel it. Basically, with the reflex testing, if I do a test on the body, it causes an irritation if there is tension at that point.
Yes, it would be,
and the reflexes in the whole of the body will respond. And the muscles will contract in the body.
And you feel them contract.
And what I can actually do is we look at your feet effectively, and because of the long muscles in the legs, I can actually see if there's a fractional change in leg length for a few seconds, which tells me that I've caused irritation and therefore there is tension at that point in the direction of my test. I can then gently stimulate it very precisely, mainly using my thumb, and that will send an impulse to the brain, say to the brain, excuse me, there's something here you need to come and fix, and that stimulates your natural self-healing abilities.
So in the case of somebody that's got a bad back,
Yes.
So say further up the back,
Yeah.
how do you do that? So in a very similar way?
Absolutely. We because we don't treat or diagnose, so we never treat a symptom. We're
Right.
just looking at tension that's got stored in the body. So therefore, we always work on the whole spine. We never just focus on the area where a person may perceive that they have pain or discomfort.
Right.
Because that may actually be coming from somewhere else. So if, for example, you'd come to me and said, I've got calf cramps and I just worked on your calves, the chances are that may not have been very effective.
Right.
So therefore, we always work on the whole body. But depending on what people tell me as the symptoms they may be experiencing, then I may look for other things as well.
So in the case, and we're talking Stress Awareness Month, of
Yeah.
course, and we're coming on to that a little bit later on, but in the case of what I would call the traditional, which a lot of us get, that build-up of stress around the neck area, where it's almost like you're carrying a monkey on your back and it's just stress, you're able to, in that same way... Is that often fixed in one treatment, or does it sometimes take longer?
Not usually. It does often take longer. We usually ask people to commit to a minimum of 3 sessions because, of course, healing is a process.
Right.
And usually by the time you're experiencing a physical symptom, you've already been accumulating tension for a while. And we use the analogy of being like an onion, and you've got to start to peel off those layers of tension that have accumulated and resulted in you walking in the door in the first place.
So in the case of someone that's carrying that in their neck, what I would call the neck and shoulder area, how do you pick that up when you're doing your initial stress testing almost?
Well, again, I would still test the whole spine. As I would normally.
Right.
But I'm likely to perhaps find some different sort of patterns of tension, as we call them,
so in the
neck.
In the case of me, where you could see in my feet that there was a slight difference, so you'd obviously touched on something.
I'd irritated something.
You'd irritated. Yeah. How do you see that when the neck is irritated?
In the same way, because I would do a test on the neck and then I would go and check whether there was any reaction from the reflexes in the body that had resulted in muscle changes, and I can see that by moving the feet in a particular way. It's quite a different concept to any other technique, so it is quite difficult for people to understand.
Yeah.
But it's the same reflex response that you would get if you stuck your finger on a hot plate.
Yes.
And snatch your finger away before the brain has got the message.
Yeah.
And in the same way, if I irritate tension with my test, your body will react.
Will respond.
And I can measure that reaction. Yes.
I get it. Fascinating. More on this a little bit later. We get to, Tracy, we talked about the neck.
Yeah, we were talking about how the reflex tests that we do allow us to establish where the tension has got stored in the body, stimulate those areas, and then encourage the body to resolve that stored tension.
Brilliant.
Effectively.
Okay, so in terms of treatments, I know you asked me to come back and for at least 3.
Yeah.
Now, what's the reason for that?
I think we actually touched on that essentially healing is a process.
Yeah.
And you will have accumulated tension over a period of time to get you to the point where you actually decide that you need to do something about it.
Right.
And therefore you will have sort of layers of tension like an onion, and that you have to kind of peel away those layers of tension. After 3 sessions, a lot of people have a huge amount of improvement and sometimes complete relief from their symptoms.
Right.
But some people do need more sessions. And we do recommend having sort of maintenance sessions once you're in a really good place, just to prevent that stress ever building back up to that same level again.